Welcome to this very first video broadcast on YouTube. So we're going to make it quick for the sake of YouTube and everybody can get on with their lives. And just a little test to see how long it stays up. What the heck is going on with California, folks? It seems like so many crazy draconian laws are actually being passed out there in California. And they're the bellwether that causes a lot of these actions and policies to be enacted across the country. So I want to get into our loving Governor Jerry Brown of California, who has been signing some of the most ridiculous bills into law. And we're going to touch in on a few of those just over the next several minutes and point out that there is absolutely an absurdity going on within our legislative system in the state of California. And it should prove to show that there is actually a mindset behind a lot of these actions when people like you and me, just the average working class citizen, are able to intellectually define these laws in their very most basic intent. Those people who are actually writing the laws, we all know good and well, they have even more insight into the inception of these laws, these bills that are enacted. So let's talk about the most recent and probably the one that really just kind of irritated me above all else. And it was this Senate Bill 219 that was signed. And what it does is it's specifically towards long-term care facilities like nursing homes and other elderly stationary facilities, in which a nurse or any other member of that facility, any other staff member of the facility, who continues to refuse to call a person who is transgender by their preferred pronoun. Now, number one, I have a huge problem with this, folks, because when you ask a person to subjugate themselves to a false reality, you're telling them that they have to deny what they've learned in school, the science, the actual human physiology, anatomy, something that every single doctor on the face of this planet understands. And the fact that we're not hearing this out of doctors is really irritating, because we all know that sex is defined by your chromosomes. You have two X chromosomes, you're a female. You have an X and a Y, you're a male. There are specific extenuating circumstances, such as Klinefelters, where there is an extra chromosome. You can have an XXY, be a very masculine female. You can have an XYY, and be different than the average, So this is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the people who are displaying acts of, or displaying, traits of schizophrenia where they believe that they are something that they are not. If I were to go to my doctor and tell him I am the Prince of England and my dad was Elvis Presley, he would tell me you have a serious mental disorder and it needs to be fixed. Same would be said if I went into a doctor and said I am a woman. He would say, well, let's find that out. And after a blood test proving that I have a Y chromosome, that would be debunked. So what we're doing is we're debunking the entire transgender ideology in that very short 3-minute statement. But what it does is it takes those people who are elderly, transgender, that are living in these assisted facilities, and it takes any staff member that refuses to call them by their preferred gender pronoun, again, asking a person to deny science, anatomy, physiology, the real world, and it would allow them to be imprisoned for up to a year and even fined up to $1,000 just because you refuse to call a person by their preferred gender pronoun, just because you refuse to disavow science and human anatomy. Now, this in itself is not, as ridiculous and absurd as it is, this is not the most upsetting issue for me. It's when we tie in these other bills that were actually passed. Another one is actually going to be California Senate Bill 239. So that would be CASB 239 for those that want to look it up. And what it does is there's been a felony charge put in place for anybody who knowingly transmits a highly infectious disease such as HIV positive to an unsuspecting victim. And that's been a felony, to knowingly give somebody a disease without their consent, as it very well should be. However, this new bill, California Senate Bill 239, actually decriminalized that. It doesn't mean it's legal, but it does take away the felony charge where you won't be jailed or suffer severe prosecution. No, it makes it more of a parking ticket. Pretty much the literal equivalent of a $50 parking ticket or a speeding ticket where you broke the law, but it's not bad enough to send you to jail. And they've done that with the transmittance of HIV. So now in the state of California, I want you all to think about this. In the state of California, it is no longer a criminal offense to knowingly infect an unsuspecting sexual partner with HIV positive. Also, now these people who have it don't even have to disclose that information to blood banks or sperm banks upon donation, in which point, if you're in the state of California, you better hope and pray that these facilities are testing the blood and or semen that you're receiving through them. Now, the worst part about this whole thing is it's the reaffirmation that it continually gets, as with most things. They practice the memory hole technique in the exact opposite. They will beat you over the head with a certain idea so that it will seem normalized, and all of a sudden it becomes passé in conversation. And even the LA Times, what they report, and they say this with a straight face, and I'm quoting, California took a major step towards treating HIV as a public health issue instead of treating those living with HIV as criminals. Now, I do not know of a single person with HIV that has been treated as a criminal. I don't know a single person with HIV that has legally been segregated. There's no sitting at the back of the bus for HIV people. There's no drinking from HIV water fountains. It doesn't exist. After segregation laws and Jim Crow laws and the civil rights movement, we don't treat people that way legally. So anything that's happening is done on a personal standpoint. So therefore, the state itself cannot be accredited to treating people with HIV as criminals. However, they have just totally taken away any ramifications of anybody who is knowingly or wantingly to give HIV to somebody who is unsuspecting. Interesting thing about this is it also comes out at the exact same point in time that a male hairdresser in New York just got found guilty of 4 accounts of cutting the tips off of condoms with an intent to infect partners with HIV. How interesting that this all comes out at the same time. The other is California Senate Bill 1322. Again, I point out everything that I have that you can look up yourself without being able to show you the bill on paper itself. I'll tell you how to get to it. I believe that everybody should have the information for themselves to make educated decisions. This is the point of neglected news. However, Senate Bill 1322, which is actually signed into law once again by Governor Jerry Brown, the amazing man who just offers the world so much, it again decriminalized childhood prostitution. Yes, that's right. There are prostitution laws in the state of California and states all over this country. However, many of those criminalized prostitution laws do not apply to that which is under the age of 18. So before, it was a criminal offense, and they would take in these girls, many of whom they've been drugged up, they've been kidnapped, they're forced into this and have no recourse to get out of it. And most often than not, a lot of times it's the police officers pulling them from these situations. That's the only thing that's really saving their life or granting them a future. Yeah, they might have this, quote, bad mark on their record, but the truth is they have a life and they have freedom of choice after that point. And that's when they're able to start to progress in their life. Now, what upsets me about all of this is California has said it is okay, you'll just suffer a parking ticket, but it's okay to knowingly withhold information that you are HIV positive when you have intercourse with somebody, donate to any sperm and or blood bank. And if you suffer any ramifications, it's only going to be the equivalent of a parking ticket. They've done the same for childhood prostitution. However, if I ignore scientific law, I'm safe. If I acknowledge and completely live by the science of human anatomy, physiology, and don't deny science like Bill Nye decided he wanted to come and turn around on after many years of his first gender determining factor episode, and totally ignore the X and Y chromosome factors, and then I can actually go to prison for a year. However, the poor girl that's sitting on the side of the road because she's been forced into something that many of them don't want to be, it's just an empty lifestyle, most of which, they're controlled by the quote pimps and don't get to make real decisions for their own lives, that's okay. And the poor individual that didn't have the option or the opportunity to be notified that they were going to be coming into a highly contagious or highly infectious and detrimental disease, the perpetrators of that, they don't suffer any ramifications. So all of a sudden, a person's feelings, when they have decided through a very detrimental mental disorder and schizophrenic behavior, have decided that they are no longer who they were born as, they have more power over your life than childhood prostitution laws do in the benefit of those poor girls. This is absolutely absurd, and this is why I'm saying there is something seriously wrong with California. If you want to become, if you're transgender, if you want to change your name, if you want to feel like you're a member of the opposite sex, that's fine. I don't care. This is America. We all have freedom to do what we want, when we want, and how we want to. But to impose your opinions or your ideas onto somebody else, causing them to have to cave to yours because they are not allowed to stand up for their own without suffering legal recourse. Yet at the same point in time, like I said, these poor girls are being, preyed upon. Girls, boys, there's a lot of different childhood prostitution issues going on in this country. But when California says that contracting HIV when you didn't want it and being forced into childhood prostitution is not as important as a freaking gender pronoun, that's my problem. That is why I'm so upset. And that is why people around this country should be exactly the same way upset, because it's not so much the law that was passed, it's the fact that they're overlooking the major issues and playing on the most minute, ridiculous issues possible and making them the most asinine resulting laws. I mean, the result of breaking the two laws that I mentioned, SB 239 and SB 1322, childhood prostitution and the transmitting of a highly infectious disease, they're the equivalent of a parking ticket, but a gender pronoun will put you in prison for a year. Ladies and gentlemen, there is something severely wrong, and this is not being talked about. The laws maybe are being talked about. We might have heard about them in the past, but this correlation between the two different ones, there is a big difference in the way they're being treated, and that shows the intent behind the people that are implementing these laws. They don't have your best interests at heart, and this is all just a political agenda. So to the state of California, I say, what are you doing? This is absolutely ridiculous. It's egregious to the people who are suffering because of these laws. And it just asinine and shows your evil behavior because you people, y'all know what you're doing. You politicians that are writing these bills, that are signing these bills, you know what you're doing. And you're preying upon unsuspecting individuals. You're preying on the weak-minded. You're preying on the weak-abled. And they don't have a chance to defend themselves. Just like the girl doesn't have a chance to get out of the horrible situation she is, being drugged up and on the corner of the street, being forced to perform sexual acts as a minor. And you're not going to take her out of that situation because it's a misdemeanor now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Neglected News. I'm trying to talk about the things nobody else wants to. Hopefully you'll like my video, you'll share it, inform the people. There's more coming. We have bombshell news coming out tomorrow directly from the World Health Organization, and I will be definitely getting into that. Y'all have a wonderful day. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. This is Neglected News, and I'm Aaron Jenkins signing off.